Hi all on PlayChess.com and also streaming to YouTube. Hi everyone. Okay, I thought this week for our Kingscrusher radio show we should have a quick look back at the World Blitz Chess Championship. And you might wonder why do I look at Blitz games? Well, actually I do like Blitz chess. It is a form of the game I've actually really enjoyed for many years. Before even YouTube existed, I was playing Blitz chess. I went into I was playing at Checkers Cafe Blitz chess many years ago. Yes, it's my favourite form of the game. So I find it slightly fascinating how the Super Grandmasters play Blitz chess. And I had some reservation. You might not like the idea of not covering just the winners' games, but we did have a look at a few games of the winner of the World Blitz Championship, which was Grischuk, and that made him the 3 times world champion, Blitz champion. Magnus has won it twice before, but I thought still it would be interesting to see, how did the world champion do in this Blitz tournament? How did he play? And maybe check out his blunders. Maybe next year he's going to win it. In any case, he's a heavy favourite every year. So let's see. Well, with a chance of winning the title every year. So this game I'm going to show you first. I think it's from round 8. It's Dmitry Andreykin, who was 27-20 against Magnus playing black. And Andreykin starts off with knight c3. And we have knight f6. Actually, we're transposing to the 4 knights variation. I believe it's called the 4 knights variation because the 4 knights are out. I know that's not very original, but I'm pretty sure this is the 4 knights variation. Yes. And Dmitry Andreykin plays bishop b5. And we have bishop b4 symmetrical. It's the main move, actually. It's the main move response, in case you're wondering. I believe it's the main move response, just to keep it symmetrical. Castles d3, and black can play d6, but Magnus broke the symmetry, fracturing white's structure. This is the second most popular choice. And d6, offering white to do the same if he wants to create perfect symmetry, but thankfully we have h3 instead. And the knight is free to move now, and it goes to that g6 square, which seems entirely logical. And now we have rook e1. The knight actually doesn't yet go to g6 though. We have a6. Let's actually put on the kibitzer as well, maybe, just in case. There's some tactics to analyze. Bishop drops back. b5, tempo gain. And again, not actually playing g6, not yet. c5. And in fact, the knight might decide to return back under certain conditions and not go to g6. We have bishop g5, but here it does actually decide, yes, g6. Bishop d5, hitting the rook moves. a4, white's trying to peel open that a file to get an entry point. h6. And I have a nice feeling about black's position here. Myself, I like black now after bishop takes, queen takes. As any of you know from my bullet chess or 3-minute chess, maybe even 5-minute chess, this dark square play is really attractive for attacking the king. If you get a knight on f4, you're well on your way generally to building up a nice attack. So I like black here, but of course you've got to be concerned about white's queenside play. White opens up that a file, knight h2. Now we have queen g5, pretty direct. Looking at g2, knight f4 to follow, and then we're also threatening bishop takes h3, of course, immediately, as well as knight f4, or knight h4 might be useful as well. But the principal threat is bishop takes h3, so that's addressed. Rook e3 defending h3. Knight f4, now threatening queen takes g2, checkmate. We have rook g3, kicking the queen, goes there. Well, our rook is slightly misplaced actually, so even though Magnus hasn't got a raging attack, it's it's an interesting position. If black ever gets to play f5, he'd want to have to unpin this and play f5. Then this rook might be better placed than this one. We have bishop b3, king h7. King does unpin the f7 pawn, so that's free to move. Freddy Krueger pawn, Freddy. Knight g4, f5. Freddy is moved, f5. E takes f5. D5. Now, temporary pawn sack, and it seems this is actually a really interesting move, d5 instead of bishop takes f5. Maybe that does demonstrate some brilliance, but actually the engine's choice is just to take on f5 immediately. Yeah, this is a bit odd. Yeah, bishop takes f5 immediately apparently is simple and quite good for black. At this position, queen b7 looking at g2. I wonder what's going on here. I think this is interesting for black as well. Okay, anyway, we have this d5 instead of just retaking on f5. Downside, I mean, immediately apparent, it looks as though e5 might be a bit weaker. On the other hand, c4 looks to be blunting the bishop out of the diagonal. We have now white playing maybe to address c4 in particular from black, plays c4 himself here. Possibly, it seems that white might have done better with queen e1 here. Let's see if we're just dropping the bishop back for a moment. Apparently this position might be okay to play. Might be. Because something like rook takes, there's knight e3. But anyway, no, white was concerned about c4. And actually, I do wonder, if you're playing against the world champion, maybe you do consider the world champions more seriously their perceived threats. Well, maybe you shouldn't. I know, maybe especially in Blitz, maybe you should just play your normal game as far as possible. Maybe there is a psychological thing about that. To consider c4 a dangerous idea of this delayed recapture. So it's addressed, but it blocks in the bishop. B takes c4, D takes c4 temporarily on that diagonal, and we've got the dreadful looking double pawns. And in fact, the evaluation's gone up immediately to nearly +2 for black. So in fact, hold on a sec, why was that +2? Here wasn't so bad apparently. No, here is so bad. Yes, this is bad. Queen e1 should apparently, from an engine point of view, be played here, whatever happens. So in this continuation, c4, this is just bad news, it seems, from an engine point of view. This is, from a visual point of view, shattered pawn structure, blocks in bishop. The knight's really quite good on f4. Black's going to get this pawn and have pressure on f2 soon. We have queen e1, bishop takes f5. Now here, you might think e5 is attacked. Let's have a quick look at this. I think the problem, without checking, is knight e2 check. Yeah, if queen takes e5, I think we've got knight e2 check, or after taking as well. We can play it either after taking or immediately, knight e2 check. So that pawn's immune at the moment because of knight e2. So we have rook a6 instead. So probably a little bit of miscalculation from white's point of view, because this position shouldn't have been permitted. If this was a long game, I don't think white would be entertaining this position with these fantastic central pawns. Queen d2. Okay, looking to take the knight. Bishop takes g4, protects the knight. Rook takes. And the pawns look to be crashing through in the centre. e3. Yeah. I don't know how good Andrakian is supposed to be on Blitz chess. Does anyone know? The time limit, I think, is 3 minutes with 2-second increment. Does anyone know? Sorry, out of interest, is Andrakian meant to be good at Blitz? I mean, possibly he is. I mean, I suppose everyone who was in this tournament is really good, but he's getting completely smashed here visually. It looks completely over. So f takes e3, d takes e3. I mean, I think there's going to be some grandmasters that are, you know, practicing all the time on the main servers, and some that might not play a lot of online Blitz. But anyway, so Queen E1, E2. I mean, it just looks not just positionally, tactically. It's a totally, every perspective looks like a disaster here. Knight takes H3 with Rook F1 is one forcing sequence. Maybe that's addressed with this next move, King H2. We have Knight H5, threatening Queen E5 check. This looks really nasty, and there's going to be Rook F1 soon after that. C3. Yes, the check is played. But also, funny enough, C3, although trying to reroute the bishop, does mean the bishop's actually hanging here. Yeah, the bishop could actually be taken. Maybe this is just immense time pressure. It's over anyway, check, and then the bishop's taken now. So White resigned that. He got completely destroyed there. Yeah, it went pear-shaped. So Magnus, I don't know what we can say about that game. Magnus crashed through the centre with his pawns. I don't want to rewind the game. I just want to think about it from memory for a moment. I was comfortable with the black pieces. If I was playing black, I was comfortable after Queen takes F6 on move 15. I think I got even more comfortable. Actually, what was interesting was not minding the Rook G3 Queen eviction. And yeah, he got King H7 to play F5. Looks pretty standard, but then actually D5 was, maybe you could argue D5 was a moment of brilliance. If he had played the ordinary recapture, maybe White would have done something else. But D5 just aiming to shut down White's light square bishop. So that seemed to be really cool. I don't know, did you think that was cool? D5. I think that was a cool moment of this game. D5 to shut down that light square bishop. On move 22, I thought it was. Okay. Okay, let's go on to another game. I think apparently on day one, Magnus was doing well. I think, was it 3 days? I think to start off with, he was doing really, really well. He was on schedule. He was crushing everyone. Okay, so Nikolic, Pedrog. Let's have a look at this game. If I can load it, please let me load this game. Is it Predrag Nikolic? How do you pronounce Nikolic? Pronunciation. Chessgames.com is very good for pronunciation. Hasn't got it here, so let's just load the game. It's actually not a gigantic game. So Magnus Carlsen was playing black, and we have D4, D5. Yeah, nothing revolutionary so far. C4, E6, Knight F3. Actually, now it's a little bit unusual. I don't know if any of you have ever played this move in Blitz. The usual moves, Knight F6, C6, you consider sort of this stuff, yeah, or maybe taking here, or maybe here. But this, actually, Magnus played A6. It's 170 games in live, but A6, isn't that a bit odd? A6, but it has been played a lot before. Is that a surprise weapon of some sort? It appears to me one of the ideas might be to take on C4 with a quick B5 supporting the pawn and giving this bishop that nice diagonal. E3 actually immediately supports the pawn. Knight F6, Knight C3. And black actually does take on C4 and plays B5. Lo and behold, so gaining a tempo for the Finch bishop. And yeah, it looks as though this is a nice position to have with the black pieces. Bishop D2. I don't see any major problems. In fact, for some reason, to me, I'm not trying to be biased to Magnus Carlsen. For some reason, to me, black looks better here. In some ways, the bishops look more aggressive than White's bishops. I think because there's a bishop pointing at the king here, and black seems more geared up for the E5 square. than white is for the e4 square. It's like there's more pieces around e5. So in a strange way, it seems black's done more than equalise in a practical sense. But the engine has white as slightly better here. We have rook c1, black castles, queen e1, and again, and now it's like the engine actually favours black significantly, almost like half a pawn after this move. And now that's pretty magical actually. Strange opening with a6, leading to a position which seems perfectly harmonious. I'm wondering why don't I ever play like this in Blitz? This is just brilliant stuff. It's just simple and brilliant at the same time. Magnus is black. Doesn't black look perfectly harmonious? He's playing black here. White is Predrag Nikolic. So the position looks great. I don't know what you guys think. Does black look great here? I'll ask that as a question. Black looks great here, yeah? Anyway, so queen e7, it looks as though black's already geared up for a quick e5. And in fact, funny enough, after knight b1, which doesn't look the most aggressive movement in the world, doesn't even threaten the c pawn, that's already protected. Black just plays e5 and seems much more than equal now. Yeah, I don't know, white seems like a frightened rabbit in the headlights. Do you think? White's saying to me, please run me over with your articulated lorry. Look, I'm just a frightened rabbit. I'm just going to retreat my knight. Sorry, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. Bishop a5 was played. Yeah. E takes d4. So these bishops are just looking really quite more. They look more than just good here. These bishops look like mean. Yeah. These bishops look mean. Knight takes d4 was played. So I wonder, okay, there is a question, why wasn't e takes d4 played? Well, this one puts pressure on e2. I don't know, is white already in trouble in this position? Attacking the queen? c5? Black looks good, but what he plays looks even worse than e takes d4. Yeah? He plays knight takes d4, and Magnus is able to threaten a mate in 1 now, queen e5. Yes, it's really sophisticated now, isn't it? Threatening a mate in 1, creating permanent light square weaknesses along the diagonal. Yeah? c5, let's just kick away this central knight first. But a clever little trick, instead of moving the knight, which of course actually loses this pawn, that pawn is able to be taken here safely, it seems, but white played this little trick, bishop f3, counter-attacking the bishop on b7. Nevertheless, Magnus can actually win the b2 pawn, which could be handy. And we don't just want to win pawns for sake of winning pawns, it's like winning squares, isn't it? Queen takes b2, as long as the queen's not getting trapped, this looks pretty good. Threatening to gobble up another pawn. So if bishop c3, I think we will just gobble up another pawn, right? And come back quickly to the center. So yeah, e4 was played. So white does seem to be a pawn down, facing a 3-to-1 pawn majority with pretty bad pieces. So he plays e4. We have rook f e8, threatening to win a second pawn. We have this tempo gainer, but the queen does munch another pawn now. Queen takes a2. Yeah, it looks, you know, superficially you'd say white's 2 pawns down with no compensation. And you might think, why didn't Nakamura play in this event? Well, Nakamura was winning the Millionaire Open. Nakamura got loads of money instead. He could have destroyed all these GMs, couldn't he? Yeah, he could have given a challenge to Magnus and whoever else. But he was playing in the Millionaire Open. So you got these GMs that, I don't know, they just fall to bits. So anyway, e5. It doesn't really do anything. So we have queen d5 hitting the knights. You know, there's a pin on the queen. There's not even a real threat. Okay, queen d1. The queen's come off, and Magnus takes on e5 now. So he's 3 pawns up, and funny enough, White resigns. Yeah, White has resigned. There's nothing here. There's no compensation. What do we learn from this game? I don't know. You know, it seems as though a6 is some sort of weird killer move, which caught White by surprise. You know, maybe out of opening theory. So all you need to do is find the move in Livebook, which is like 6 or 7 moves down, but has been played before, and you know, some opponents will be shell shocked. They won't know what to do, and they just get mashed. I don't know. a6. Maybe it caught him by surprise. I have no idea. Yeah, you know, rook takes d7. You know, just knight takes. We're still protecting e5. 3 pawns down. There's no compensation. You might think, we'll try and win this c5 pawn. Hold on a sec. Bishop takes. Knight takes. Unfortunately, we're on f3. No time. We're going to be protecting c5. Okay, I had no idea. Okay, interesting. Okay, so Magnus wasn't being challenged at the moment. So let's go on to another game. Well, not in these 2 games anyway. So someone called Socko Bartok. Hang on, is there a pronunciation for this guy? Bartok Socko? Hang on a sec. Okay, Bartok Socko, Poland, 37 years old. I am 1995, GM 1999. Unfortunately, I haven't got a pronunciation link. So you have to go with that. Socko. I don't know. This isn't a gigantic game either. Don't have high expectations. E4 from Socko. So he's 2599. So let's not be too hard on him. He's not over 2700. So e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5. Yes, this is Yoko piano, right? c3, knight f6, d4, and Magnus takes on d4, and then we have this e5, and now instead of moving knight, we have d5 hitting the bishop drops back, knight e4, c takes d4, bishop b6. I don't know about you guys playing black here. I've had this position. I really like it with black in Blitz. I've had similar positions to this. It seems black's really comfortable. He's got a really aggressive knight on e4. I think generally statistically in Blitz I've done well from this sort of position with black. So knight c3, black castles. White dare not take that knight because then there's loads of pressure on d4. So bishop e3, knight e7. Where's the knight going? f5 might be attractive to hit that bishop. White castles. c6 gives the possibility maybe of bishop coming back. Also, of course, d5 more secure. Rook c1. The knight is supported. Queen b3. I'm not sure White is threatening anything in particular here. Interesting move actually. The bishop's just gone to f5 and the queen's now committed to b3. Actually, this is a good test. What would you play here with black? Before I test you on that, hold on a sec. No, it's not an engine move, so maybe I shouldn't. It's an interesting move. Although the bishop has just gone to f5, now Magnus puts it on g4 because maybe he's sensed d4 is slightly more vulnerable. Okay, so h3, the bishop drops back. Rook fe1, knight f5. So okay, maybe putting pressure on these points. And White now plays knight a4, so he's got his own pressure points, it seems, at least. But black now does take on f3, weakening d4. Bishop takes. Now, in this position, knight g5, threatening to really damage White's pawn structure. The bishop goes to g4. and here knight takes d4, which doesn't immediately kind of win a pawn, but it does decentralize white's queen away from his king after bishop takes d4, bishop takes d4. Perhaps best would not be to take the pawn. The engine suggests just playing like this and holding on. But white played queen takes b7. And funny enough, there's 3 pieces that can conspire against the king here with the queen over here. And we see that happening now, which is why this is like more than +2 for black immediately. Knight e4. So white defends. But now a clever little trick move. Fantastic move here, which the engine does agree with, so I'm wondering if you could find it. There's 2 strong moves. Black to play. So I've given you a clue. You've got to make the pieces all work together. Black to play here to attack. What would you play? There's a cool move that was played in this position by Magnus Carlsen. Can you guess? Come on, attacking players in the audience, how would you make this attack really crush, badly, white's king position with tempo? Any ideas? Queen h4 is a good move. Yes, I'll give you some points for queen h4. Yeah, it's a really good position for black. Queen h4 is just simple and strong. But let me just proceed. Queen on that route. To get your points, you have to answer what you do on this move. What would you play here? Those people that said queen h4. Black to play here. What would you play here? Actually, there'd be 2 good moves here. Okay. Either h5 or knight g3. Yes, that forks, doesn't it? That forks. But yeah, Magnus played even cooler though. This is actually more accurate what he played. He played actually h5 immediately. Now if bishop f3, then we can take here, play this check. And actually, are we on the knight, or is it something else? No, it's about the knight. King f1. We can take the knight, and with the exchange up. Okay, so h5 seems really good. White took that. Queen h4, and this is pretty desperate now. We have bishop takes f7. And Magnus puts the queen even further into Siberia lands by sacrificing the exchange. So the queen on a8 basically is lacking in influence. Like a knight on a8, the queen is also losing a lot of its functionality on a8. Any defensive capabilities. And when you've got 3 pieces like this, in fact 4 now, coordinating on f2, this is where you might say you're in trouble with the white pieces. To say you're in trouble is actually a little bit of an understatement. So anyway, white actually played rook cc2, and it's actually a forced mate in 10 here. According to the engine, it's actually a forced mate in 10 with knight takes f2. This is how bad this is. These pieces here are not helping the defense of the white king. I think you might intuitively have established that. So rook takes f2, rook takes f2, bishop takes f2. These Magnus games are fun actually. I think they're more fun than the other time when we were looking at the winner of the tournament. So king f1, okay, and now it's a mate in 8. Magnus does play the move which is like mate in 8 or 9 or 10. Queen f4, threatening an immediate knight g3 checkmate. And it's actually here, funny enough, white resigned. The way it becomes a mate in 7, just in case you were wondering, is computer defense gets kicked in, queen g8 check. Okay, then rook c3, so that just saved the move from getting mated, yeah. And now bishop b6 check, yeah, queen f2 check, queen d2 check. Now sometimes when you're really short on time, it's good to find the most accurate way of winning by checkmate. But anyway, yeah, so what do we get from this game? Interesting, I don't know. It seems Magnus is really dangerous with the black pieces or something. What is going on here? I don't know. It's really odd, isn't it? Where did white go extremely wrong in this game? Let me think. I don't know if queen b3 was a bit away from the king, because Magnus actually wasted a tempo with bishop f5 to g4. So he could take on d4, white trying to regain his pawn on b7, start sending his queen basically to Siberia. The exchange attack wasn't particularly great genius after that, because we had basically 4 pieces then against white's king, with, you know, white's queen stuck on a8 and the knight stuck on a4. I thought it was a nice fun opening for black. I mean, you get the idea when you've got a few pieces that are coordinated together after the opening that you might have some chances. But I like having the knight on e4 from the outset in this opening. I like the opening, and all these games actually I quite like black's, you know, start position. It seems as though black's ready for business. So let's look at another game anyway. Okay, so I hope you got a lot from that game. Yeah, so let's carry on. Okay, let's see another game. Alright, now someone that did last longer than these other opponents. So this guy, Pavel. Okay, now I'm going to get done on pronunciation. Let me see if there's pronunciation for this guy. Pavel, I'll say Uljanov provisionally. Uljanov. Pavel Uljanov, right? He was born in USSR, now Ukraine, awarded the Grandmaster title back in 2000.
Pavel Elyanov.
Yeah?
Pavel Elyanov.
That's from ChessGames.com, courtesy of ChessGames.com pronunciation. Yeah? Have you all got it now? You can't accuse me of mispronouncing this.
Pavel Elyanov.
Okay. Okay, so Pavel, he's 2717. He's an over 2700 player. Yeah? Over 2700. D4. So he's playing white against Magnus Carlsen. D5. Knight F3. Yes, and we get this killer move that we saw from a previous round. Is it a previous round? I assume it's a previous round. We get this killer move A6. This must have worried white at this stage. This move A6. What round is this? Oh, it's round 3 actually. This is an earlier round. Alright, so this is the earlier occurrence of A6. Okay, it's terrifying. I know, it's terrifying. Black is ready to, you know, maybe pounce on white's bishop on here and gain an important tempo, or not. Bishop F4, Knight F6. Now white's kind of playing very, very cautiously. It looks like a London system setup. I dread to say that. It's a London system symmetrical position. Both sides castle. And now white actually spends another move to pin the knight. Oh dear, okay. H6. Bishop H4, Knight BD7. Knight BD2. C5, C3, yes, London system-ish, this position. B6. So black logically tries to put more influence on E4. E4 is played immediately, freeing white's game up a bit. C takes, D takes. Structurally, of course, isolated queen's pawn has emerged. Bishop E7, Queen E2. Bishop B7. It looks like a fairly standard sort of position. fairly standard trade-offs. White has the isolated queen's pawn, but an aggressive looking position in other respects. The isolated queen's pawn supports e5 in particular. Okay, rook ac1. Magnus takes on e4. We have takes on e7, takes here, takes here, takes here, takes here. So we have this position where it seems perfectly equal, but as it goes more into the endgame, I would expect black to be slightly better. If black's basically neutralised most of the dangers already and seems to have an equal position. He's fully equalised. I wonder now if that e4 was a good idea from white. It seems to have exchanged off a lot of pieces, leaving white with an isolated queen's pawn. I don't know, is that a too simple a way of looking at this? White just seems to be somehow slightly worse. In fact, the engine agrees with me. It's minus 0.07 already to black. I think it's worse than that in a practical sense. If you get a nice grip on the blockade square, it's going to be torture. But anyway, so queen e2 and a nice positional move here. Okay, this is a nice positional move. In fact, the engine likes this as well. Black to play. So how do you reinforce your blockade on the d5 square? Black to play. What would you play here with black? It's a positional move. It's not a tactical move. And in fact, the evaluation goes even further in black's to black's side now after this next move. Any ideas? I've given you a clue, the d5 square. Not rook fd8. Not rook fd8, no. Not knight d5, no. Yes, well done. The first person, yes, yes. Congratulations, Artur Gorecki. Yes, well done. Queen b7. The engine likes it as well. So what is it doing? Actually, it's safeguarding the c6 square as well from an infiltration, as well as keeping an eye out on d5. So we have rook c8. It also supports exchanging rooks via c8. So it does tick two boxes to facilitate rook c8 more easily. And now we have this beautiful blockade square, knight d5 being used. Now Magnus takes a pair of rooks off. Actually, now he plays knight e7, which threatens rook c8 immediately as well. h3. White doesn't seem bothered. We're drifting into what I thought most people are aware of. If you've got the isolated queen's pawn, you don't want mass simplification. There are numerous examples dating back to Capablanca where you sort of routinely won games like a machine when the opponent has an isolated queen's pawn. So the play is fairly established idea that the more you get into the endgame, the more that isolated queen's pawn is going to hurt. So anyway, knight f5. We have rook c4. a5. Interesting. Maybe trying to suppress b4 from white. Queen c1. Now the rooks come off. And now queen e4. So a little bit of torture on d4. In fact, there's an immediate threat. Queen b1 check and nabbing a pawn. This pawn. Queen b5. King h7. Offering b6. That's taken. Check. Taking on a2. Protecting a5. Keeping the blockade square. Queen b5. a4. Threat a3 takes, queen takes f2. That's the threat. Now probably white didn't help himself too much here. Technically the engine suggestion is knight d2 for some reason. Let's have a quick look. a3 to play g4. This looks crazy stuff. I have no idea. Oh, it's alright to stop the pawn queening or something. But in this game, we have, in this position, g4 being played immediately. And now knight d6 on the queen. Queen b4. Queen d5, just exploiting the weaknesses of that g4, that f3. So actually we've got two things now, the isolated queen's pawn and some light square weaknesses. Queen c3. Knight c4, threat. Knight takes b2, queen takes b2, queen takes f3. White parries that, knight e5. Knight takes e5. Magnus doesn't care, it's simplifying further. And he's dissolved the isolated queen's pawn, but he's got something here still. Queen e4. f3, check. Closes up this diagonal to any checks. h4. King g7. King h3. This might have been a mistake actually. This whole h4 might have been a mistake. Apparently white shouldn't have played that. Queen e1 might have been more resistance. But even here, h5 or king h8, apparently black's slightly better, but white probably made things worse with h4. So he had some idea perhaps of maybe playing for g5 on h5. But we have king g7, king h3, h5, and it seems as though there's weaknesses being created in white's position. King h7, and here it's actually evaluated as more than +1 for black. I think we've approached a zugzwang nearly, because if the king moves then queen takes h4, right? So the queen is also stuck protecting this one. I've seen quite a few zugzwang games recently on the channel. It seems white's almost in the zugzwang the way he's played this. Anyway, so queen c7 was played, and that just leaves the pawn to be taken, and now Magnus just protects his f7 pawn. And after queen c5, maybe white ran out of time. It's just 0-1. It's possible he either resigned or ran out of time. But basically in this position, black is actually technically really winning after check, for example. And queen takes b2, 2 pawns up with a winning outside passed pawn. I'm not sure there's any perpetual checks here. I think white's perpetual checks are not really that evident, because here check, 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 and then we can push the pawn actually. Alright, yeah, black. Okay, so white just fell to bits. I don't know, that was a strange one. Quite profound little loss actually. It seems somehow small little positional advantages accumulated. Yeah, maybe, you know, e4, it led to an isolated queen's pawn, then some sort of tickling, and then that g4 created some light square weaknesses, and we head into even more simplification. But even in that very simplified position, a kind of zugzwang where white's falling to bits. What else? I don't know what to say about that. It's amazing, isn't it? So even despite all that simplification, black had a massive advantage, even just with 1 queen each. So, okay, interesting. Okay, shall we have a look at another game then? So let's have Carlsen with the white pieces, Magnus with the white pieces. So this was in round 9 against Francisco Vallejo Pons. I'll get a pronunciation of that. Hold on. No, I can't. Okay, so Pons was playing black. Pons is a Spanish player, Spain's top player. So 2684. 2684. Magnus plays with the white pieces here. D4, and we have actually F5, an exciting opening. The Dutch defense. Knight F3, Knight F6, Bishop F4, B6. Interesting. E3, Bishop B7, C4, E6. So has Black got us an improved Nimzo engine defense where he's got more control over E4 than usual? This pawn's already here rather than here. Bishop E2, check. Bishop goes back. White castles. Knight H5. White doesn't mind about losing the dark square bishop. Magnus just plays Knight E5 here. Knight takes. E takes. Black castles. Bishop F3. C6. Now D5. This looks interesting. D5. Yeah, what to do about D5? It looks awkward because this diagonal looks potentially quite sensitive. Black played Bishop F6, but if we played this. If we played like this, I think Black's going to get in severe trouble. And actually just Knight here, threatening. What do we do about D5? Horrible. Then what do we do about this check? Just losing the exchange. So yeah, D5, nice move, it seems. D5, Bishop F6. Knight B3. Black takes on D5. C takes C5. D6. Black looks to be in some sort of trouble because there's a really aggressive knight on E5. And yeah, that pawn on F5 doesn't seem to do that much. So bishop takes F3, queen takes F3. Got to do something about the rook. Knight C6. Funny enough, Black is losing the exchange to Queen D5 check. Yes, classic. For a pawn, Rook A E1. And actually after this move there's ideas like Rook E3 to switch over here as well as just double rooks. A5, A4, Knight D4. White takes that and infiltrates to the 7th rank. Okay, the bishop's protecting G7 at the moment. Drops back, but there was no protection of D7. This one we just play Rook E8. Yeah, let's play Rook E8 as mating, of course. So bishop drops back, Rook takes D7. So yeah, Magnus has emerged quite quickly, rapidly at move 25. The exchange up and a big centre pass pawn. Yes. Okay. Rook D1. So it's a matter of technique. C4. Get the queens off. Get the pawn going. D7. Threatening check. Okay. Now Rook C8 was played anyway. The rooks came off here. Rook C1. It's going to be winning this pawn. The bishop's overloaded. Black didn't even bother protecting the pawn. If he plays bishop F6, we just play Rook takes C3, right? Because we're going to queen. So Black just played King E6. Rook takes C3. Takes check. He's exchanged down really. I don't think there's much to play for here with Black. King E2. It's increment as well, so it's a bit hopeless. It's not going to easily win on time. B5. So after Rook D5, Black actually resigns this position, white's going to get behind his pawn with rook b5, and that'll be it. Once this happens, then well, white can leisurely do a number of ways to win the position. Block the pawn with the king, and then just queen this one, for example. Yeah, okay. So it seems in this particular game, I don't know, a lot of his opponents have been sort of run over in the opening, it seems. Although it was slightly unusual. It was a sort of London system versus a hybrid Dutch Nimzo. But that early d5 from white seems to sort of just be quite destructive. It dislocated black's position. It opened up possibilities along the a2 to g8 diagonal, which actually did win the exchange later. Black, tactically got done over on the f3 to a8 diagonal, so he had to defend his rook on a8. With knight c6, he didn't parry queen d5 check though, which won the exchange and basically the game. Any questions on that? Okay, let's go on to another. Okay, interesting stuff. So that was Carlsen against pawns. Oh, this is a brief game. Blimey, don't expect too much here. This is Magnus is playing against Vladimir Akopian, not Akopian, Akopian, right? P-I-A-N. So 2648 Akopian, right? And for those that want to know about Vladimir Akopian, he's Azerbaijan. He was an IM in 1988, GM in 1991. He's Armenian champion 1996 and 97. Vice world champion FIDE 1999. Okay, let's see. So Magnus kicked off here with e4, and Vladimir played the Sicilian defense. Knight f3, knight c6, and we have what I used to really annoy me, the anti-Sicilian Sveshnikov, because sometimes you play this with the idea of getting a Sicilian Sveshnikov, but white, if he's a fun killer, he or she will play bishop b5. That's really annoying. So d6, white castles, bishop d7. Yes, this is a far cry from a Sicilian defense position. Rook e1, the standard sort of Sicilian defense positions. Knight f6, h3, e6, and white simply plays c3. We had this position on the table when I was a junior, when I was playing in the British Major Open. A lot of us were discussing, why have we got all this Sicilian defense theory when white can play like this, like a Roy Lopez, and just establish a pawn center? It's really simple to play. It's an interesting question because it is really simple to play like this with white. And this was years back. Juniors were discussing this, as a way of just playing against the Sicilian. Okay, so anyway, bishop e7, d4, c takes, d5, e5. Yeah, white's just got an advantage, it seems, in space in the center. Knight e4, the bishop drops back to f1. However, black actually is okay here, and the usual move in live book is a6. Apparently there's 30 games of a6, and it's meant to be about equal. In this game, black castled. Okay, no big deal, one would think. Knight bd2. Black played now knight takes d2, bishop takes d2. It's not yet a disaster by any means. So Akopian's done well. He hasn't lost the exchange yet. He hasn't been mated. He hasn't sent his queen to a8 or something. No big disaster so far. So rook c8 was played. Magnus plays a3. knight a5. It seems logical to, with this a3, to put a knight on c4, because you might think it's more difficult to evict. You know, with a knight on c4, you're going to take on a3 of b3. Bishop d3, knight c4. And now a defensive move from Magnus, defending b2 very carefully. h6. I guess there might be a concern that white's going to just do this to provoke g6, or yeah, g6. But h6 is played, bishop c2. So white is intending queen d3, and you might think, well, why did black actually play h6? Because now then g6 is going to be harder, right? Because then you'll drop h6. Why is black playing like this? Interesting. That's quite mysterious, actually. h6 instead of g6. Interesting. Now I wonder even if f6 is possible here. He played actually bishop b5. If he plays f6 or f5, actually white can take here and torture this pawn instead on e6. But anyway, black's idea, and it's the engine move, top move as well, is actually bishop b5 here. Nevertheless, queen d3 is still played, threatening mate in 1. g6. And yes, now bishop takes h6 clearly is being discouraged, because then there's something like knight takes a3, protected by the knight, hitting the queen, hitting c2, end of game. However, white doesn't have to take on h6 here. Now, there's a magnificent queen move by Alexander Alekhine, that's the clue, that Magnus kind of uses here in this position. White's play is a queen move. So what would you play as white in this position? White's to play. Also, there's a question about bishop c3. Okay, hold on. White's play. If bishop c3, hold on. You're saying if not bishop, was bishop c1 too passive for you? If you bishop c3, I'm sure there's a tactic here coming up with c3 in mind. Not immediately, because there's queen b3, but queen b6, and then black is threatening knight takes a3 onto this one. Yeah. So that's troublesome. Knight takes a3 would be big trouble on c3. So on c1 it's more secure, right? But anyway, in this position, okay, this is the position, right? You've provoked this weakness, so you've got h6. You can't take it because of knight takes a3. But white play in this position. What does white play here? Queen move. Queen move. What queen move would you consider is good here? There aren't too many queen moves. No, it's not queen sack. It's not queen takes g6. No, it's not queen b3. It's not b3, it's a queen move. If b3, then there's, as I mentioned before, I think there's like knight takes a3, it protects. The queen just dropped back to d1 here. The damage is done, right? You've provoked some weaknesses. Be happy. You've provoked some weaknesses. Be happy and content. Queen d1, vacate the d3 square for the bishop. Let's pin this guy to this guy. You know, pins win games, yeah? Pin and win. Have you heard that expression? So after queen c7, Yeah, this isn't a war and peace game, I assure you. This after bishop d3. Now a good move for black. Oh dear, oh dear. Would be queen b6, for example, or bishop a6. Yeah. But no, black plays rook fe8. White's play and win. And it's the final move of the game. Come on, you can all guess this. Tactical genius, yeah? Yeah, just b3 actually. Forget the king side. b3 and black resigned. Yeah, he's losing the piece. I think he's just losing a piece. It's a shame. If bishop takes h6, maybe there was some fantastic idea. Yeah, knight takes b2. Yeah. Magnus is not falling in for this knight takes b2 little trick. No. He's tricked the tricker. That b5 bishop is not going to get his pieces. He's going to win that b5 bishop himself. b3 just wins a piece. End of game. Yes, that really happened. I know, it really happened. Has anyone seen these games before? Has anyone seen these games before? Yeah, it's a bit of an anticlimax. So actually black was okay up to this point. If only he had played bishop a6 or queen b6. It's a shame. He was the first opponent to seem to reach a position which wasn't completely lost. Although I do wonder why he needed to play h6. I mean, why? Why did he need to play h6 earlier? Why couldn't he have just played g6 in advance? The engine even suggests g6. Is g6 ludicrous? Is there something wrong with g6? It weakens some dark squares. It's an engine suggestion. I don't know what's wrong with it. If we go here, rook, then there's knight takes b2 in fact. If we do this first, then there's rook e8. I can't see what's wrong with that. So anyway, yeah, okay. Poor Akopian blundered. It happens in Blitz. Okay. Lower your expectations on these games, yeah? I'm going through a number of them to make up for what we don't have in quality, we have in quantity tonight, yeah? So we're making up for quality with quantity for tonight's special evening. Okay. Now, actually, our next game is a bit longer, so be prepared. Now, this is a much longer game than what we've seen so far. I'm showing you just the decisive games, by the way, not the draws. Okay, so Magnus here was playing white against Sergei Karyakin, or carjacking, as he's often pronounced, carjacking. No, it's Sergei Karyakin. In fact, I can tell you how he's pronounced. Hold on a sec. There must be a pronunciation here for him.
Sergei Karyakin. Sergei Karyakin.
Okay, courtesy of ChessGames.com. Okay, Magnus played d4. This is in round 11. Knight f6. Bishop f4. Yes. Bishop f4, getting the bishop out. Before e3. e6. You see, we're all conned that c4 was a good move. When it comes down to it, you know, players like Magnus, c4 is no good for them. They don't want a pawn which can be taken. Yeah? So, knight f3, c5. In fact, c3 now, we have a sort of London system set up. Knight c6, knight bd2, bishop d6, bishop drops back, black castles, and we have bishop b5, which looks really logical to control the e5 square. Just exchange off this guy. Sergei doesn't mind. He's looking maybe that white's weakened himself on the light squares, and the clue for that is, you know, these pawns are all on the dark squares, so there's like these light square weaknesses in the position. So it's theoretically it's double-edged to do this. Bishop takes c6, knight e5, the pawn is protected, knight d3. Now taking is on the cards. c4, bishop takes, queen takes, knight c5, e5, he opens up his bishop, b3, black takes, a takes, and we've got some a-file pressure. So a nice post on c5 it seems, a knight post, knight outpost. Rook e8, castles, knight g4. So black is now threatening e takes and queen h2, takes h2 mating. And Magnus wasn't afraid to play g3, you see, g3. And look, no light square bishop. He's weakening light squares, and he hasn't even got a light square bishop here. Yeah? I was right about g6 in the other game. Look, nothing wrong with g3. Except if Magnus lost this game, maybe you'd question it, right? So if I asked you this question, what is the probability, you think, of Magnus losing this game because of light square weaknesses? Now you have to be completely honest and objective. What is the probability? Tell me. Is it more than 50% or less than 50%? 80%. Now, those that have seen the game before, please, you know, don't distort, don't distort the results. Yeah. Okay, so this move is not rocket science. This next move, it threatens mate in one. Yes, queen h6. Yes, there's a threat of queen takes h2 checkmate. h4 creating more weaknesses. And I don't know, I might be tempted by g5. It wasn't played, but if g5, what happens? Just knight f3, and then black's worse, because actually you've created lots of weaknesses yourself now, which you didn't need to do, right? So don't play g5 there. Okay, so queen h6. h4. So rook a7, much better. Rook a7 was played. King g2. Rook a e7. You see, black respects, with this rook move, the center file. Respects the center. And also you might think, what about this a6 pawn? Hold on a sec. Can't we just take on a6 here? Actually, this wasn't taken. Knight f3 was played here. If knight takes a6, then the rooks aren't just pretty in the center. They might actually do something. E takes. And if c takes, black has, in this position, black to play. This is just a variation of the game. What has black got here? Now the rooks, you know, when grandmasters centralize rooks, sometimes it's not just to look pretty. Okay, so what does black have in this position? This is a variation, game variation. Didn't happen. Magnus didn't take the pawn on a6. Alright, yeah, rook takes e3, yeah, well done. Because we've got this fork, haven't we? This fork, if that's taken. So that's horrible. If it's not taken, then we get an infiltration to the 7th. Yeah, you see that fork? Everyone sees that fork? Yes? That's not very attractive to lose the queen there. So yes, the a6 pawn wasn't taken. We have knight f3, e4, and h2. Black took on h2. And in this position, g5 is really good, actually. And it is played, g5, yes. In this particular position, it's really good. You see, it's that Morecambe and Wise, not Morecambe and Wise, sketch about that if they're brilliant at music, like playing all the right notes just in the wrong order. See, I had g5, but it was just in the wrong order, you see, otherwise it was a brilliant move. In this particular position, g5 really works well, yeah? I said that first, g5, earlier, in the wrong position. But it works here very well. Okay, so rook h1, g takes h4, king g1, and yes, the pawn is pinned, but it's just moved here, supported by the bishop. White takes on a6. Then we have rook a7, knight c5, rook takes, queen takes, bishop g4. This bishop is invading these light squares. There's a horrible light square grip here. King h2, queen f6. Something has to be done about queen takes f2, checkmate. Queen b2, queen f3, threatening queen g2, checkmate. Rook g1. So Magnus is on the defensive here in round 11. Rook a8. He's really on the defensive. This knight doesn't look too clever, actually. It hasn't really got much going on for it. You might think knight a4. In fact, Magnus chose c4, which apparently is a mate in 7 in this position, which wasn't picked up on. Is that no, a mate in 6? There's actually a mate in 6 here? 7? No, the engine's changing its mind. It's either a mate in 7 or a mate in 6, apparently, after c4. Fascinating. Wow. So in fact, technically knight a4 was the best move to stop that, by the way. Here, rook d8. We're going to do rook d6. Alright. c4 was played. So let's have a tactical test. What is this mate in 6 that the engine's saying? Mate in 6 starts with what? Which black didn't play. Yeah, a few of you have guessed it. Rook a1. Rook a1. What is going on here? Well, if the rook takes, then we've got queen g2. If queen takes, then we've got queen takes f2, and then bishop f3, mating next move on g2. The computer defense is queen e2 here. Oh dear, oh dear, oh man. Oh, or queen a2, it's ridiculous. Yeah, so rook a1 would have finished the game. And you're wondering now about knight a4, aren't you? If knight a4, just from a theoretical perspective about this position, knight a4 at least stops rook a1, but apparently black is like +7. Let me show you just an engine line for how black can just win this. Hold on. if it's really true that the engine's got a clue how to win this. How? Do nothing. Rook h6. What's the idea? Ah! Yes, I get it! There's a mate in 4 here. So even this sideline, mate in 4. Fantastic. Black to play here. Can you all see a mate in 4? Black to play a mate in 4 here. Anyone? Yes! Queen g2 check. Takes, check. Check. Mate. So Magnus was busted even if he played knight a4. He's facing an execution here. If you ever get this in the game, then you know this is an interesting maneuver, right? So anyway, he played c4, and okay, we have king g7. The game went king g7, c takes d5, and again rook a1 was on. Yes, rook a1 was on in this position. It was missed, apparently. On this, Sergei just likes torturing Magnus. He just wanted a bit of torture time instead of just the win, yeah? So we have c takes d5. Maybe he saw it. He just wanted the torture of the world champion, yeah? b4. We have rook b8. Again, rook a1 was on the cards here. But rook b8 was played. Knight a6. Rook b6. Actually, the idea might have twigged now. This idea might have twigged instead. Knight c7. Actually, rook takes b4 was played here, even though rook h6 is actually a quicker forced checkmate. But rook takes b4 was played, trying to distract the queen. Queen a2, rook a4. Again, rook a1 is winning here. I don't know what's going on in this game. I used to think Sergei Karyakin was a tactical mega genius. I don't know why he's not playing this rook a1. Did anyone ask him why he missed rook a1 like 10 times? Maybe he was down to like a minute or something. Okay, he plays rook a5, protecting d5. we have check. Knight c7. Now here it might be the case that rook a1 doesn't win in this position. Black played h5. Let's just check. Does this actually win still? No. Because knight takes d5 here. And if rook takes g1, knight f4 check actually protects g2. And then white can actually safely play this takes without getting mated. So the moment is almost like past here. But apparently king h6 or king g5 are the two of the strongest moves. Hold on a sec. Wait. Is that rubbish? Hang on. No. What I've said is rubbish. Hold on. Check. King g5. I think black's winning this still. With check. Bishop f3. No, he's still winning it. No, that's still winning. The light squares are still fatal. The check here. In this position, king g4. and yeah, white's still getting it. Okay, yeah, so I'll forget that. No, I thought it wasn't at the moment. The moment it's still there to play, believe it or not, even at move 39, rook a1. So h5 was played instead. Queen c2. King h7. Don't tell me it's possible here as well, just out of interest. It's almost still possible there, not that great. King h7. Queen b2. It's definitely possible here. Queen f6. Rook c1. Queen f3. Black had an idea just to infiltrate here with the queen. Rook g1. And even in this position, rook a1 is still like forced mate in 6. Queen f5. Rook c1. Yeah, strange. I don't know. I must have been in severe time pressure or something. Rook a7. Knight e8. I'd like to see the footage for this game. It's fascinating. Queen f3. Rook g1. Rook a6. After queen c2, yeah, even in this position rook a1, but actually rook e6 was played. And here, I don't know, maybe white just overstepped the time limit. It's just got 0-1. Yeah, so sometimes dynamic moves escape super grandmasters on blitz chess. I think we can conclude that from this quite vivid example. It's easy to be a spectator after the game, but you know, if you've only got like 30 seconds, then maybe that just doesn't occur to you. What was his winning idea with rook e6 anyway? If knight c7, then we have got rook c6. Maybe this is why Magnus resigned, because finally the queen is being taken away. Yeah, from f2. He's losing a piece actually. Isn't white kind of losing this piece because he can't play this because of this? So he resigned here. Maybe he resigned here after rook e6. That was a strange one. Okay, let's look at another one. But the moral of the story is, yes, even if you're the world champion, if you've put all your pawns on dark squares and you've weakened the light squares, giving up the light square bishop generally is not to be recommended, because funny enough, you'll be even weaker on the light squares than you were already. So that's the conclusion from that game. Okay? Light squares. Weak light squares. Yeah? Let's have a look at another one. Carlsen against Fresnay, who once played a brilliant game against Vladimir Kramnik with the black pieces, which there's a brilliant video on YouTube about. An animated story, someone's walking around a park telling complete strangers about this game of Fresnay. So Laurent Fresnay is a French GM, I believe. He's 33 years old. He won the French Championship in 2010 and 2014. Okay. D4 for Magnus. Knight f6. And Magnus plays the terrifying move. Can you guess? A3. Yes, he's playing it in reverse now. It's even more terrifying here than playing it with black. A3. It's just waiting to accelerate a fianchetto bishop here, waiting to pounce on black to accelerate his queenside fianchetto. So black played g6, we have bishop f4. This is in round 4. d6, e3, bishop g7, knight f3, castles, bishop e2, b6, castles, bishop b7, h3. Yes, this has got a London system feel to it as well. Knight bd7, but now white plays c4. Knight e4, bishop drops back to h2, e5, d5, a5, b3, f5. It's almost as if black wants some sort of attack or something. Knight fd2. So this knight, which is not even developed, is ready to recapture happily. This knight protects the other one. Knight takes, knight takes. Now the snag with knight d2 would be knight c3, right? Because this would be annoying, right? This sort of position would be very, very annoying. But Magnus carefully avoids that possibility here. White's play a nice positional move. White's play here. So how would you get rid of this pesky knight on e4? Carefully, clinically. Actually, it's not mentioned by the engine. Sorry. When it's not mentioned by the engine, I shouldn't really ask you. But given I have already asked you, can you guess Magnus's move in this position? Anyone? All right, thank you. Okay, rook a2, yes, well done. The engine's choice was actually the engine has picked up on rook a2 as a move, as well as queen c2. Yeah, it has actually. Okay, bishop c8. But now actually, yeah, knight d2 is still prohibited by knight c3. Actually, that doesn't change that. I misled you. f3 is played here. Knight c5, knight c3, queen g5, f4, queen e7, knight b5, bishop a6, king here, knight e4. Rook c2, there's the point, protecting c3 now. That's nice with that rook. Yes, okay. E takes f4, e takes here, bishop f3, rook f7, knight d4. So he's heading for that e6 square of the knight. That's protected. Knight c6 hitting the queen. Now Magnus takes on e4 and plays b4. Black has got hemmed in c8 bishop here. White's king is pretty safe. I know that bishop looks bad, but it's pretty safe king. Takes bishop d7. c5. Takes. Bishop takes c6. D takes. Rook takes. And black's slightly better apparently from the engine perspective. Black's doing fine. Bishop f8. Rook e5. Bishop d6. Hang on a sec. It might have been better apparently to play queen f6 in this position. Technically better to get white after queen f6 to get white to take here. Apparently this is maybe more interesting for black than the game continuation, which was bishop. Okay, that's another way for getting white to take on e4. But here, queen d4. Alright, queen d4, yeah, stopping. Well, queen d4. That looks like a good move, queen d4. Sorry, I've got a mild headache. In case you're wondering why I've slowed down my commentary, I'm trying to disguise the fact I've got a mild headache. and this game seems a bit dull as well, so I've slowed down the pace of my commentary. I hope you don't mind. Yeah, we're over an hour in, yeah, so I wanted to go over all the games for some reason. This is a bit it's a bit strange, isn't it, because Magnus's bishop is hemmed in. It seems like passive, but on the other hand this pawn is now a little bit vulnerable. It's protected, but now the bishop is liberated with f5, challenging the bishop on d6, as well as threatening maybe check first and then taking on d6. Okay, so actually white, after f5, apparently is now getting, wow, a gigantic advantage after f5. What's happened? In 2 moves, black has gone from being slightly better, if he had played queen f6, to being +4 for white here. Hold on, can that be really happening? Let me do a sanity check. Right, this was the position, right? The engine suggested queen f6 was at least, it was equal or better for black. If takes, queen d5, e3, queen c4, let's just follow this. There should be no problem, right? In the game continuation, we had bishop d6, and now we have rook takes with queen d4. This one, which compounds things, apparently queen e7, and this position, queen e8. If takes, there's rook e7, and if takes, there's takes here, and black should be okay. But what happened instead was actually rook e7, which allows f5. So there's multiple threats with this f5. There's the check, there's f takes, there's bishop takes. Black took on h2, and now we have this check here, creating a rather unfortunate, tragic pin, I guess. Yes, this is unfortunate. After king f7, white can just take here as well. That's a really painful pin in this position. But we have f takes g6, which apparently isn't crushing. Okay, hang on. In this position, there's 2 really crushing moves. I've mentioned one of them, king takes h2, but there's also f6. If the rook like moves here, we can't move this bishop because this is like check. If the rook moves, check, queen g7, and queen g8 is checkmate. Alright, so either king takes h2 or f6 is absolutely murderous here. Even king takes h2, it leaves this horrible pin. So f6 is crushing in this position, as well as in fact in this position fg. But the way Magnus plays it, he kind of technically seems to let black go here by playing f takes g6 here, king takes g6. It isn't so bad. Apparently this is equal technically now, even with that pin. King takes was played, and black has got queen g5 here. He didn't play it. Queen g5, so if check there'll be king h6. Black should be okay. But what he did play instead was actually e3, and again white is in the driving seat. White now plays check, king here, check, So we can't do this without losing the rook. So we go here. Check. King g7. Ah. And in this position, there's a bone-crushing move which was played by Magnus. There's also another good move which I'll give you 50 points for instead of 100. There's two really crushing moves in this position. Magnus did play the most incisive move in this position. White to play and win. White to play and win. Can you guess what white plays here? Yeah, that's a good one. Rook f4. It is a good one. Yeah, 50 points for rook f4. There's also another one. Not queen f8. But g3. Yeah, if on g3 this is actually really murderous. If here, then we have check, and the point is we've used up the h6 square, so that's checkmate there. But also, yes, rook f4 is really strong. Where's the queen going? If it goes there again, we've got check. Well, we've got check here, winning the queen anyway. That's mate there. But yeah, you might be wondering, did I just give a load of fibs about Magnus messing this up with f takes g6? Why was that messed up with f g6 instead of f6? I'll show you why. Okay, king takes. Well, I kind of mentioned it already, that apparently black has queen g5. Apparently this position, right, so there's no this position, it seems as though there's nothing for white. What is black actually threatening? Black's actually threatening, well, e3 or check. Do you agree that there's nothing for white in this position? It's strange, isn't it? One little slip up with a pawn. So f6 instead is so much more crushing. or this one, reserving that possibility. Okay. I don't know, what do we say about this game? It was longer than some of the other games. Fresnay seemed to be a victim of creating some weaknesses which sort of turned out to be fatal eventually. Magnus had a blocked in bishop. It was liberated with that move f5. It's really difficult to say something about this game. It seems as though it was like a kind of London system setup, just provoking black to create weaknesses. Basically, it's pounce on them later. Is that too cynical? Is that too cynical a thing to say? Sometimes you play these very solid systems just to encourage the opponent to attack you. Is that what these solid players do? I don't know. I don't usually class myself as solid positional, but I think some of them do. It's Petrosian created that trend that kind of get the opponent to attack you and pounce on the weaknesses. Is that a bad assessment? Is that too cynical? If we just rewind back, let me just say, if we just rewind back, from an engine point of view, black wasn't doing too badly in theory. Here, round about move 32, apparently black was doing quite well. So Magnus's rook e5 is kind of encouraging the bishop to be liberated. Things started to go pear-shaped with bishop d6. in this position, you know, black, the white rooks are not that impressive. White has got a more advanced pawn than black. Black didn't need to necessarily deserve to lose this particular game. From a technical point of view, black doesn't seem to be losing this position on move 33. Somehow moving the bishop doesn't help his position. Okay, difficult one, that one actually. It's only Blitz anyway, so you know, Blitz is often, it's going to be more decided by tactical blunders and stuff, weaknesses maybe, leading to tactical blunders. So here we go. On the next one, Carlsen against Maxim Bachelor-Grave MVL. Is it fair to say the c6 pawn had a crushing pressure? I don't think it is fair to say that. The c6 pawn is a double-edged thing. You know, it could be a weakness, couldn't it? It could be picked up as a weakness. I don't know. You can't say that. Yeah? It was a double-edged part of the position, the c6 pawn. Okay, so knight f3 for Magnus. This is in round 6. Maxim Bachelor-Grave 2758. So he plays knight f6. We have g3, g6, bishop g2, bishop g7. Both sides castle. d4, d5. Knight d2, c6. b3. Bishop f5, bishop b2. Alright, looks fairly standard stuff so far. Both sides have got a grip on, you know, the key central squares. We have knight e4, e3, knight takes d2, knight takes, knight f6, queen e2, queen d7. Black looks as though he might be tempted at some point to play bishop h3, rook ac1, rook ac8. In fact, after knight f3, instead he pins this knight. And white comes out of the pin with queen e1. And now Maxim plays bishop h3. Yeah, trying to soften up white on the light squares, yeah? Knight e5. Hitting the queen, queen e6. C takes, c takes. Apparently, technically, white's doing quite well here by taking. If white took and queen a5, that's potentially annoying for black. This wasn't played, but queen a5 here looks like an old world championship game. Someone played this in the world championship game. Something like this. But yeah, there's dark square pressure on black. It's not all one-way street here. But Magnus, he senses the dark squares anyway. He plays queen b4. So queen's quite well placed, it seems, on b4 as well. Bishop takes g2, king takes, black protects the b7 pawn. Now bishop a3. So yeah, the dark squares are a little bit vulnerable in black's position. Black protects e7, takes, takes, rook c1, tries to control that c file. Queen f5, queen a4. This might be a useful move to play to keep the knight out of e4 and g4 and stuff, or anything out of e4. In fact, black now throws in this check, king g1. Apparently, technically, black shouldn't be doing very well at all here. Black's technically worse, it seems, but with bishop h6 it looks quite aggressive. What is black actually threatening? I'm pretty sure he's not threatening bishop takes e3 or anything, but Magnus actually kind of looks as though he's cautious about e3. He defends that. I'm not sure he needed to. Rook c6 would seem okay. I don't think there's anything particularly going on there. But yeah, rook e1 was played. Queen c2. Now black is threatening to take this pawn actually. And we have a tactical idea. Knight g4, trying to distract the knight away from e8. It's actually a great move. It seems technically great move, knight g4. Because actually it looks as though it's rather unfortunate that there's a bishop on h6, which seems to make knight g4 more effective than it would have been if the bishop had been back on g7. and and here black resigns. If I told you black resigned, would anyone believe me? Sorry, there's a delay on stream. Just kidding, just kidding. sorry, I'm just kidding. I was just mucking around. Black didn't resign there. No. Just mucking around. Sorry. No, black played on here. I was just kidding. I was just seeing if I can get away with it. No. Black actually took on g4. Yeah, he played on. Knight takes g4. He's actually technically losing this, though. He's actually technically losing it. So it's quite believable, wasn't it? The engine has this as nearly, plus 2.5 here. Yeah? He's losing the exchange. King g7. it's now here, okay, we've got things under pressure, right? We've got these sensitive bits, yeah, to protect, and Magnus does protect his sensitive bits by playing rook f1, right? And there's a tactical blow here played, bishop takes e3. So the point being, right, as we've got coordination on f2, and it looks really dangerous, yeah. Actually, if f takes, then we have queen takes h2 checkmate. So this looks a little bit dangerous, but Magnus calmly plays, calm as a cucumber, plays queen takes e7 here. And with queen takes e7, he's now threatening check. Well, he's actually threatening a mate in 9 with check. Queen d8 check. Queen takes d5 check. I hope you can visualize this. Knight e5, and it carries on. F takes e3 check. There's a mate in 9 anyway. With queen f8 check threatens. Yeah, because we just activated the bishop, this battery. So black in this position plays bishop takes f2 check, but now after king h1, white is still threatening this menacing set of checks with queen f8 check, followed by queen d8 check, etc. So we have queen e4 check, and black's last hope lies in this pawn. Magnus takes that, so the last hope is this pawn, right? But unfortunately, Magnus has also got a pawn to push. d5, e3. And now, here, d6 actually does seem to be quite good as well. But bishop b4, e2, rook c1. The pawn is held for the moment at bay. King f6, d6, pushing the pawn. His own pawn, king e6. And now a clever little move here by Magnus. Rook c2. Yes, skewing the pawn and the bishop. and the king's on the e file, right? So we have e1 takes check. White is the exchange up still, and it's more simplified than before. The game continued knight e5, king g2, like this. So black's the exchange down for one pawn, and actually, yeah, he's not doing much. Soon here, check, king d5, rook a8, check, g5, rook takes a5. He's just the exchange down. He's a pawn in the exchange down. And actually here, finally, he did resign here on move 55. Okay. Yeah. Actually, coincidentally, someone about 1900 on a different server played some sort of tactic like that against me in a 5-minute game recently. The queen was on a4, hitting like thing on, and he deflected my knight. I had the same sort of, I was victimized with the same sort of tactic where you got this queen seemingly doing nothing on a4, but then you just need to get rid of the defender on f6. So it was actually winning the exchange. Technically it was actually lost. So so I had you guys that he resigned there. No, he played on for ages. But he eventually lost. Okay, there's no tale of the unexpected. He did actually eventually lose. But the tale of the unexpected was really that MVL did really well overall. He came second overall eventually. Maxim Vaclav. Okay. Carlsen against Grischuk. Now, Carlsen against Grischuk, you can refer to the other session we had on Grischuk for the Carlsen against Grischuk game. Yeah? Is that okay? So there's another video on YouTube. If you want to check the Carlsen Grischuk. Oh. So I'm not going through that. Is anyone disappointed that I'm not... Does anyone want a quick review of Carlsen against Grischuk or not? Please don't tell me you don't want a quick review. Please, you've all seen it before, right? A few weeks ago. Let's not go there. Okay, it's already there. Look at the other video. I can quickly play for it, but it's on the other video. Oh God, it was a 54 move game. I'll quickly play for it just for the sake of completion. This is narrated on another video on YouTube. I'm not going to narrate it here. I'm going to play through it. Yeah, Magnus was white, and he managed to lose. It's narrated on another video on YouTube.com, kingscrusher. Check it out. Video is called Grischuk wins Blitz World Championship. Grischuk was black and was the exchange up eventually and won. Okay, there you are. Okay. Refer to other video on YouTube. Okay. Okay, now this one, Carlsen against Garwin Jones, who I've played in 5 minutes. I got a draw against them. I was better in the offer the draw and I accepted. No, this really happened in a real world, not on the ICC 5-minute Blitz tournament. I drew with Garwin Jones. Yes, I drew with Garwin Jones. Honestly, I'm not making it up. Does anyone think I've made this up? Seriously, it wasn't a dream. It was in this 5-minute tournament, which the North Circular League organises. Garwin Jones came to it. I drew with him. I was better. He was better at one point, but I think he blundered. It was only a 5-minute game. But anyway, Magnus was white against Garwin Jones, 2-6-2-3. My mic is muted. No. Is it? Can anyone hear me? Oh, sorry. Are you kidding me? Sorry. Please, no joking. Listen. All right. So, Magnus, this is in round 17 now. c4. Okay, you got me back. It's 1-1. It's 1-1. Okay, no more bluffing. c4, knight f6. Knight c3. G6. Okay, we have an English opening. Bishop g5. Yeah, so White's just going to exchange off here. He does, in fact. Play that. Knight f3. Takes. Castles. a6. Yeah, pretty non-theoretical, but you know, it's a small advantage possibly for White. Knight f8. Now with this move, White is looking towards d4 here. It seems rook b8. But first, actually he doesn't play d4 here. He plays b3. Maybe waiting for black to play b5. If b5, maybe d4's better here or something. Actually, in this position, no, I'm really getting a headache. I'm not going to go there. Bishop g4. Bishop g4 was played. This is a long game. h3. Bishop takes f3. Bishop takes knight e6. Bishop drops back. d5. C takes. C takes. Queen b2. Queen d6. Apparently black's doing fine here at the opening. At this point. So it's pretty quiet, the position. Knight d4 was played. Knight a4. White does have that c5 square to play with. Knight g4. Black's getting very aggressive with his knights. Actually, queen f6 might actually be something to be concerned with. We have knight c5, and in fact queen f6 is played here, pressing that pawn. That pawn is protected with e3. Knight f3 check. White must take on f3 here. If he plays king h1, then can you see what black can play in this position? This is a variation. King h1 was not played. Okay, if I asked you what can black play here? Actually, it's not a forced mate or anything. It's a bit, maybe it's not the right sort of thing to ask. It's not a forced mate, but it leaves White's position quite difficult. Yeah, knight takes h4. If it takes, knight takes, we get a few pawns and we get the king kind of damaged. We can kick the knight after, and we can get this pawn. It's quite nice for black, this position. Yeah, it's quite nice. Anyway, so that's avoided. Magnus just snaps this off. Yeah, it avoids that hassle. Okay, even though, yes, it looks as though his light squares are a bit weak. Rook e1. Yes, there might actually have been something in the air with like d4 or something, but rook e1, d4 is more able to be handled now because of taking. This wasn't played. Taking, for example, taking here and then taking here. So it's prophylaxis. Rook e1 is prophylaxis, it seems, against d4. So rook e7, queen e2, get the queens off, And white does have, it seems, an advantage emerging on the queen side. This c file looks actually very comfortable for white. f5, knight drops back, so the rooks are going to come in to c8. Check, the rooks infiltrate, and now it starts to look a little bit nasty for black. Rook c7, knight c5. Yeah, it looks as though black's on the back foot now. He's been positioning outplayed. d4 actually loses a pawn basically, potentially by force. This b7 pawn is hanging on for dear life, but Magnus now he takes that on d4, takes on c7 and plays rook b8, hitting that pawn. So the b7 pawn is going to be the seed of black's destruction in this position after all that. Knight d7, and white is officially now pawn up. Takes. So pawn up. King comes towards the center. Knight a5. The knight wants to come to c4 here. Knight b6, stopping that for a moment. So the king and knight stopping knight c4. King e2, knight a4. Actually, what was white actually threatening? White potentially is threatening to come onto the dark squares, I guess. So anyway, so knight a4. Now there's a little bit of cunning move, this knight a4. Let me see. If king here, does this no longer work? Knight b2, yeah. It kind of discourages that. This d3 will be a problem, right? So knight c4 was played, which stops knight b2. So the king might actually take a wonder here to g5. Check. King e6. f4. Knight d5. Knight e5, threatening to take that pawn. Black plays now knight e3, threatening in response to take this pawn with check. So actually king e2, and we have knight c2. Now here you might wonder, can white take on g6 in this position? Well, a3's hanging, right? So if we take here and black takes here, it's not that brilliant. So Magnus actually here plays knight c4. This knight has been sucked into white's position and it doesn't seem to have an escape route out. It's been imprisoned, in fact, this knight on move 49. It goes to the desolate square. a1. Oh dear, things have really got bad if the knight has to go to a1. And you might think, okay, here, you know, we'll go back here and hit this, right? So the king comes here, and the knight looks to be a victim in this position. If knight b3, then king c2, and the knight's just getting munched. But what was played is no better. King d5. After knight a5, the knight is a prisoner, and black resigned. There's nothing, it seems, to stop. Well, the knight stops from coming out. The king is just gonna eat this knight soon. Example: king e6, king c1, king d5, king b2. Yeah, the knight's just trapped. Now that knight disaster wasn't just an accident. As I say, I think basically white that did have already a major advantage in the position with the extra pawn, but also his king, if the knight didn't do something, the king was just going to come on to like g5 by f3, yeah? So it wasn't an accident the knight got trapped. black, yeah, so if you ever play Magnus Carlsen with black pieces and you have these pawns like this could be a fatal liability in an endgame. It's interesting. White's advantage in this endgame actually is there's a wall to the black king, but there isn't a wall to the white king entering the black position in this endgame. So there's an entry point into black's position and not vice versa. So it wasn't just the extra pawn. The extra pawn served some sort of purpose, but it didn't need to be pushed or anything. It didn't need to be exploited directly. More important was this entry point, I think. Okay, so let's go on to another game. So that was a bit of a grind game, non-theoretical. Okay. Okay, there's Carlsen against Tomaszewski. Have a quick look at this. E4. Carlsen was white against Evengi Tomaszewski. I can get a pronunciation on that. Maybe. Hold on. Tomaszewski is a 28-year-old Russian grandmaster. He was an IM in 2001, GM in 2005.
Евгений Tomaszewski.
Oh, that's how.
Евгений Tomaszewski.
Okay. Okay, so E4 and Tomaszewski plays C6. Oh, you're going to laugh at the opening choice here. I did try this out recently against the GM, but unfortunately lost. So if you want something interesting against the Caro-Kann, stay awake. Okay, wake up. This is something interesting against the Caro-Kann for Blitz chess. Yeah? Now, normally, players play D4 here. You may have seen this position before, and normally you play D4, correct? In Livebook, that's by far the most popular choice, D4. But have you ever considered playing the hillbilly attack? Bishop C4. It's called the hillbilly attack. Bishop C4. Seriously, Magnus played this, the hillbilly attack. It's a very dangerous weapon. Certain dynamic, aggressive, interesting grandmasters have played it in Blitz. Yeah. So Bishop C4. Okay. Yeah. Now you might wonder, does this have any advantage doing this, Bishop C4? Okay, so let's find out what happened. Why it would have any advantage, just from a theoretical point of view. Black played D5. Which actually often plays with black play E5 in Livebook, but maybe that's by transposition. D5, bishop drops back, and yes, you lose what appears to be a centre pawn. But now, yeah, this is the point of the gambit. What white play? I don't know how many of you have seen this before. White play. Guess what white plays here? Sorry, this is the point I start laughing. Because, you know, whenever we get these 2-hour sessions, I start laughing at the end because I'm cracking up mentally. I'm mentally breaking down. I'm having a mental breakdown now. Okay, sorry, this might not be that amusing as it seems. Okay, so what does white have here? Has any of you seen this before? Okay, so queen h5, queen h5. Well done if you've seen this before. Yes. Bishop takes f7 is good. Queen takes f7 is good. Yes. If g6, that's plausible. Actually, black can play g6. It seems. I would say there's 5 games in Livebook with g6, but also e6 is plausible. Okay, so e6, knight c3. So white is threatening knight takes e4 now. So knight f6 seems to simultaneously defend the pawn and hit the queen. The queen parks on h4. And this was my initial investigation into this gambit opening, which I never actually played that much myself, but I did play one game against the GM recently. I just thought the queen might be doing something on h4. Something interesting on h4. Could it be getting back the pawn or something? You know, maybe the thing it gets back the pawn, helps get back the pawn. But actually, after knight bd7, the thing is about this, if we take this pawn here, black's simply better actually. This is not the idea of the hillbilly gambit, I believe, because black can just take here and then play knight c5, forking your queen and bishop, and just has a good position here, can just maybe take that bishop away, and you haven't really got anything to show. No, the idea is actually to play f3 in this position. This is what Magnus Carlsen played, f3. So what you're trying to do is open up an f file to get some pressure points on the f file and this structure here. So black avoided playing e takes f3. So if he does that, then it's kind of, you know, potentially it's potentially got some interesting compensation, should we call it? Should we call it some interesting compensation? Yeah. Okay, so black didn't do that. Black actually played knight c5, and here we have f takes e4, and after knight f takes e4, Magnus shows he's not afraid to exchange off queens in this position. And yes, maybe it doesn't seem to be in the fun spirit of the hillbilly gambit to do this. But yeah, the queens came off here. The queens did come off here. This seems to be an anticlimax. Sorry, this is what happened. Yeah, king takes d8. The queens came off. A couple of knights came off. What can you say? I mean, this is what happened. Okay, what have we got here? Have we got anything with white here now? We're just the pawn down for nothing. d4. Well, one thing is the bishop's slightly hemmed in, yeah? We have check. And now you might think knight takes c3. No, I don't think that works. Two things. First point, bishop d2. No, that's okay for black. But the problem here, you don't want to take here because you lose the rook. But the problem here is actually a3. If bishop here, bishop d2 now is winning a piece. So yeah. So after c3, bishop went back to d6. Knight f3, and still we've got this hemmed in bishop, and you know, potential prospect on this f file. So black may be slightly concerned about the f file. He played f5. We have bishop e3, king c7, and white actually castled queenside here. Bishop d7, rook h e1, rook h e8, bishop c2. Black doesn't want this position, it looks horrible, so you move the knight. Knight e5, we still got that grip on the e5 square, and this bishop still looks hemmed in for the moment. Rook f8, g3, rook a d8, bishop b3, bishop c8. Okay, knight c4, trying to get the dark square bishop. Black doesn't mind, it seems. Black played knight d5. White grabs that dark square bishop, well, in exchange for white's one, but now injects into the position knight b5 check. There's a desperado in knight takes b7, which apparently might be interesting. This desperado sequence. because it might lead to a small edge for white, apparently. But no, knight b5 check was chosen by Magnus. So after rook takes e3, white does have the prospect of ganging up on e6. So f4, g takes, rook takes, white takes on e6. So he's got his pawn back at least. And now we have some exchanges into a rook and pawn ending. Okay, check. G6 is probably quite good as well. King d6, king d5, and apparently this position, I know we've ground it to dust, should actually be okay for black. As I say, I don't think this game is a great representative for the greatest ever Hillbilly Gambit games ever played. This is not the Hillbilly Gambit Immortal game, I'm afraid. We just see the Hillbilly Gambit being on pass and passing to a rook and pawn ending. Okay, so b6, and then we have a4. b takes, a6, c4 check. Apparently it's equal the position, so there's some blunder that's going to happen, I think. King e4, g6 check, king d6. Oh, hang on a sec. Wait. What's happening here? I think it might have been, hold on. Is white actually better here? Hang on, 3, 4. They're equal on pawns, right? Now, the evaluation here, from an engine point of view, is 0. Seriously, this is at depth 26. It says 0 here. I think I'm not imagining this. Either king e6 0, king d6 0. It says 0 at the moment. But now, okay, king e6. Okay, king e4. Still 0. As long as black, well, he plays g6, yeah, which is one of the moves which apparently is okay. But as soon as that's played, now this has gone to +3. I don't know, it's gone to +3. Let's see what's going on in this ending. Why is this +3 now after g6? And in fact, was it +3 after, say, king d6? No. So there's something wrong, it seems, with g6, which is detected like a metal detector, going deep down in the earth, finding some metal. Apparently there's something wrong with g6. Okay. What is wrong with g6? d5 check. Here, king d4. I think it's Zugzwang myself. Is this the case of Zugzwang? Hold on. No, in this position, king d4 was played, but apparently king f4 is +5. Who would have thought? King f4 is a decisively winning move in this position. Oh man, even a king and pawn ending is tricky. King f4 apparently is winning this position. King d4 was played, and apparently king d7 should be okay for black, e.g. king e5, king e7. But no, black here played instead, after king d4, played h6, which is losing again after king e4, king d7, king e5. I think the point is that these pawns might be more vulnerable to something like king f6. I think that's the point. Black, by playing h6, actually loses the game here. So if you find yourself in a king and pawn ending against Magnus Carlsen, be wary about the pawns like this as well in a king and pawn ending. Apparently this is losing. King e4, yes. I mean, with the more aggressive pawns here, the king is going to make its way to f6. So here, king e7. Black's going to be in zugzwang here now. h3 is the right... I wish I had tested you on that. The best move here, apparently, is h3 by far. By far. This is a winning move in this position. And I'll be astonished if that is the only winning move. It's about creating zugzwang, I believe. So move 43. If we play h4, then a5, and it should be a draw, right? King e4, king d6, king d4, king d7, draw, right? But Magnus played h3. This is why he's world champion. Sometimes he plays h3, and this is winning. This is a zugzwang. If h5 here, I can't believe this. This is a blitz game, right? h4, this is a zugzwang. a5, king d4 is a sort of advanced triangulation. We get a zugzwang. Yeah? I kid you not. I don't know, if you looked at this position, would you immediately think h3 is the only move? Apparently h3 is the only move in this position which is winning. Am I bluffing you? Am I bluffing you? Does everyone believe this? Hang on, I've got to ask. Do you agree h3 is the only move to win? Who disagrees? If d6, right, this is king d7, if king d5, a5, yeah, then we've got to play c5 because we can't step back, we're going to lose this pawn. We've got to play this, then black plays this, then black plays this, then black plays this, king takes, king g5, king e5, king takes, king f5, king h4, king f4, king h5, king f3, king g5, g3, hg, king takes, king f5. This is just drawing, right? We're going to have a draw, yeah? No. Come on. King d4, king c5 drawing. That's the technique. Let's keep the king opposition. King a6. This is drawing, right? Oh my god. This position is remarkable. I didn't realise this happened actually. This is an unexpected finding that actually in this position it seems Magnus has played a move which is the only move to win, h3. It's the only move to technically win here. Now earlier, okay, so after h3, I'll tell you what happened. h5 happens, h4 now, so we've got these fatal weaknesses on the dark squares it seems. a5, king d4, black is in zugzwang. Black is in zugzwang. King e8, king g5, king f7, king h6, and now d6 to distract the king away from this structure. King e6, king takes, g6, black resigned. Wow. Now for those of you really interested in this endgame, what happened beforehand, it seems technically also, if the engine never lies, that something also about this earlier position around about here, that apparently king f4 was accurate here. On h6, king e4, apparently this is no good for black. Yeah, because we get this h3 featured in this position, funny enough. To waste the move, this h3 is very useful in this position, h3. We get similar resource. h3, h4, king d6. This is another way of winning the position. Well, that's winning for white. Okay, another way of skinning the cat. Okay, great stuff. I've forgotten what happened in the game. Was it? Oh yeah, it was a hillbilly attack. Yes, it was a hillbilly attack which went into a rook and pawn ending, which Magnus won via Zugzwang. Okay, let's go on to another. Not too many more to have a look at. We're nearly there. Boris Gelfand against Carlsen. I'm showing you all the decisive games from the Blitz. Okay, Boris Gelfand was playing white. We have d4, e6. After c4, f5. Dutch defense. g3, knight f6. Black constructs a stone wall. Dutch. So d6 actually hasn't committed to d5 just yet. After knight c3, now he plays d5. Isn't that strange? Why not d5 in one go? Hang on, is that really theoretical? Hang on a sec, I don't believe this. I've lost my... Oh, hang on. Okay, I've lost some of my tabs. Oh, that's just great. I've lost my opening notation tab or something. Okay, I'll sort that out another time. Anyway, this is what happened. We get a Dutch stone wall. Castle's knight f4, knight a6, e3, knight c7. Yeah, bishop d7, knight d3, bishop e8. So the bishop might come out to h5. Knight e5, knight d7, offering exchange dark square bishops, that's accepted. f4, g5. So this used to be a favourite of Mikhail Botvinnik, the Dutch stonewall. So interesting. Whenever I've seen Magnus play the Dutch stonewall, he doesn't seem to lose with it that badly. He seems to actually have some success with it. C takes d5, e takes d5, queen c2, knight e6. We have queen b3, putting pressure on the queen side. Knight takes e5, d takes, rook d8, rook a1. The bishop finally comes out, nice. Rook d2, g takes, e takes, king h8, king h1, d4. Now knight c5 looks promising for knight e4 if that can be achieved, but actually the knight's pinned. Black takes on e2 and that protects the queen, so threatening things like, well, d3 and knight e6 maybe. d3 is played. Okay, now here knight e4 might be tempting, but it wasn't played. Actually, rook d4 was played first, offering a7, and actually a7 is taken. Rook e d8. Black's idea is knight e4 now. He's trying to connect to get these centre pawns going, right? King g1, knight e4. So, yeah, it looks as though Black's aiming for central connected passed pawns. White takes, giving him that for the moment. So they look pretty menacing. But rook e1 putting a stop to e3. Queen b4. And black is actually doing really well here, as you might think. But, I mean, why do people do this with their queen? I mean, what is this? Why is the queen here anyway? I mean, what? So apparently, if white wants to stay in the game, he has to play super accurately now with king f2. I mean, if this does hold, I don't know. I don't know even if that does hold theoretically. But yeah, with rook e1, I mean, it seems this is really dangerous, connected pass pawns in the center in a blitz game by any standards. Queen b4. Okay, and now we have d2. The pawns are just coming down like Space Invaders. Rook e2. Now Magnus gets a pawn back as well. Queen takes b2, threatening queen c2 simply. Queen c5. Queen takes a2. Queen e7. Is there some possibility of perpetual check? Well, Magnus puts a stop to that with queen g8. So he's ready for queen check with queen g7. Now, in fact, this was an opportunity for white here. A tactical... Wow! Oh, there is a fantastic tactic which was missed here at move 37. Oh well. Oh, this is glorious. White's play and win. It was missed. White's play with advantage. It was missed. If you're still awake. What would you play here with white? It actually solves all the problems. Incredible. If you were white, what would you play in this position? It's glorious. It's a glorious tactic. It's a glorious tactical idea. Anyone? I mean, it's very difficult to see actually. There's one move which actually turns the tables here. It's incredibly difficult to see. I'll show you. Rook e takes d2 apparently. With the idea rook takes, right? Check. Queen g7. Queen takes d8 check. Rook takes. Rook takes. Queen g8. We take the queen back. And then everything's sorted out. King f2. And we're happy. Maybe. Except these pawns look dangerous. But apparently this is winning for white. Yeah. This is good for white apparently. It's +4. That's what the engine says. +4, +5, +6. It's making up its mind. It's going up. Okay. But that was missed. Fantastic idea. Rook, I mean tactical idea. I mean tactic. Mega tactic. Rook e takes d2. But anyway, f5 in the game was played. So missing his chance there to wipe out these connected central pass pawns. You only get one chance. Yeah, sometimes. So queen g7. And black's in the driving seat again. Queen e6. Queen g4. Check. Queen g7. Queen e6. And now actually rook 4 to d5. f6. Queen g6. Queen e7. Again, white should be okay here. Even in this position, white should be okay. Rook 5 to d7. Queen c5. Oh, what is it with the scroll windows? Queen G5. And here white apparently, well, maybe best was taking on E4, but he played Queen E3. Now we have taking on E3. King G8, so potentially there's a nice blockade route to blockade these pawns. E6 was played. If Rook takes E4, Rook D4, apparently that's okay for black. But anyway, let's look at the game. So E6, Rook D4, King F2 was a blunder. King F2 was a blunder apparently. Rook E2 should be okay, but he played King F2 because now after Rook 8 to D6, yes, it's going to be a problem with this check on F6 if the E pawn moves, which is what happened. This is a problem now, yes. Whatever white does, it's a problem. If F7, we just play King F8. And yeah, E pawn's going to drop. If E7, then Rook takes F6. And Rook E6 is better for black. So in the game, Rook takes King E2, King F7, and white here either resigned or lost on time. Well, after Rook B3, either resigned or lost on time. Rook B3, 0-1 at move 50. I think black is in the driving seat here. B5, for example, and he's going to be munching this pawn and maintaining his pawns. For example, if here we can maintain this D2 pawn, and if here we can take here. So yeah, it was a triumph of the pawns, black's pawns, tactically. One wrong move decides it. King F2. Rook E2 should have been equal in theory. For example, C5. D takes. This should be equal or even better for white potentially. So it's slight inaccuracy in that decided it. King F2 in the wrong position. This position, wrong position for King F2. Okay, we're nearly there. Only two more games to have a look at. Only two more. Which are decisive. So Carlsen against Ivanchuk, Vasily Ivanchuk. Okay. Yeah, in the final day, I'm not sure if you heard. Yeah, Magnus he had a bit of a disastrous run in the last few games. I think this game didn't help his chances of coming first. So Magnus Carlsen playing against Vasily Ivanchuk. Okay, D4, knight F6, and we have actually the Trompovsky, which was championed by British Grandmaster Julian Hodgson. I've done some videos on the channel, of course, on that recently, the Trompovsky. So a good surprise weapon for Blitz. Ivanchuk plays C5. This is the most principled... No, it's not actually the most principled move. Usually players with black play knight E4 here. So that's probably the most principled move. And then C5 later. But C5 here has been played quite a bit as well. But it does allow the structural damage. Bishop takes F6. G takes. D5. Queen B6. So black has the bishop pair but the structural damage. Queen C1. F5. So yeah, so bishop G7 will be hitting that. So now here actually you might think white reserves the possibility of C3, but actually C4 is quite popular in this position. Much more popular than C3. So c4, popular, because the knight hasn't moved yet. I think because there's knight c3 against bishop g7. Basically, if this wasn't played but here, we've got knight c3, I believe. So that's no problem, right? So in the game, we have d6, knight c3. Ivanchuk plays knight d7, g3, bishop g7, knight f3, knight f6, knight d2, knight e4. And this actually looks like quite an accurate move in some respects. Knight e4, knight d takes e4, f takes e4. So keeping that pin on b2, if knight takes, then I think we can just take here. Okay, so we have bishop g2, queen b4, which actually is really annoying, this queen b4, because white isn't in such a great position here to defend his c4 pawn. Yeah, Magnus is dropping his c4 pawn here. So after castles, queen takes c4, bishop takes e4. I don't think knight takes e4 is particularly good because of takes and then just bishop takes b2, right? So bishop takes e4. But here, this gets quite exciting now. Black, who hasn't castled, plays a really super aggressive move against Magnus Carlsen here. Black to play super aggressive move. Guess what black plays here? Anyone? So Vasily Ivanchuk is... I think Ivanchuk's got a bad reputation for Blitz because of this game on YouTube where he misses a mate in one in some YouTube video. I don't think he's that bad at Blitz chess even now. He's not that bad. Vasily Ivanchuk. He missed the mate in one against Vishy Anand in some Blitz video on YouTube. But no, he plays a really aggressive idea. Black to play. Anyone? Yeah, at least one of you got it. Thanks. 100 points to you. H5. H5. Wake up. H5. Yes. Yes. Sort of stuff I like playing. H5. In bullet, in particular. The H pawn. Dangerous. Okay, so H4 trying to say, okay, where's the attack now then? Okay, bishop G4. Rook E1. Now black castles queenside. White tries to perhaps try and in the future open up lines. For the moment it seems a distant cry. The C3 knight is stopping any B4. So king B8, bishop G2, rook HG8. Yeah, rook HG8, queen E3, bishop F6, knight E4. But now bishop D4. That diagonal looks nasty. This is something conspiring against white's king here. Queen D2. And now you might think the attention's over here, but actually queen takes A2, nabbing a pawn on the queen side. I'm wondering, you might think, how is this relevant to any attack on the king side? That's a good question. Okay, queen F4, rook G8 protecting this pawn. Actually, black is now threatening queen takes D5 though, potentially. We have B4 ignoring ignoring that D5 pawn. There's some trouble here at mill with this pin. If queen takes d5, knight takes c5 should be okay for white. Actually hitting the queen, yeah, you don't want to do that in a hurry. So actually bishop e5 was played. And the queen actually hasn't got too many great squares in this position. She goes to e3, and now we have c4, trying to keep the lines shut to his own king. And in fact, a1 is controlled here, right? So it's actually difficult to get at the black king. We have knight c3, hitting the queen, queen a6, queen d2, rook c8, e3, bishop f5. Okay, finally to get on the a file, rook a1, queen b6. Now rook a4. So if white's given time, of course he's interested maybe to double rooks. But bishop d3, white does double the rooks, but then just a6. And where is white's attack? Okay, bishop f3. Is it really threatening to win a pawn over here? We have rook g8. And this looks really as though there's trouble at mill here on white's king. If he does take on h5, then even bishop takes g3 might be strong, like this. This might be really dangerous. Magnus cautiously plays king g2, it seems, king g2, but now we have f5. And for some reason, yeah, Magnus takes on h5. It's a difficult position anyway. His attack seems to be non-existent. If you look at white's pieces here, the only way to break through, it would seem, to the black king would be to play something like b5. But if we play b5, that can just be taken. And if we play check, then just king here and big deal. So there doesn't seem to be any easy way to the king. So anyway, Magnus just takes this pawn on h5. But now, rook cf8. And it looks as though f4 really is on the cards. We have these rooks ready to do damage. So after b5, in fact here, this is just ignored. Ivanchuk plays f4. Black missed winning a piece, sorry, on stream. Now this position visually, it does look bad news, doesn't it? Yeah, it's bad news, isn't it? Because this pawn structure is kind of fragile around white's king. E takes f4 is played, bishop takes f4. Yeah, this isn't nice. Queen e1, and black is in a great position here. He has a number of good moves and plays a more emphatic looking tactic in this position, which is ranked at number 3 actually by the engine choices. But it's a position where he's got already 3 attacking pieces around here, 4 if you include the queen. So what does Ivanchuk play? Black to play. Can you guess Ivanchuk move? Black to play here. Do you want me to reverse the board, by the way? Because this is not nice, is it? From a white perspective. Do you want me to make it from the black perspective? And does anyone want the black perspective here? Because this looks horrible. What's about to happen? Black to play, yeah. I can flip the board on request. Okay, yeah, it's more emphatic looking than the other resources in the position. The engine choice is just bishop e5, by the way, or queen d4. Bishop e5 and something like this looks a bit boring, but really this is good apparently. But no, this is more emphatic looking and to do with the king. Bishop takes g3. This is taken, and technically it shouldn't lead to a massive advantage, funny enough, with best play, this continuation. Black now played apparently this is a good move for an advantage, but black played rook f1. Now black's already invested a bishop, right? And it seems the best chance would be to get as much material as possible here with queen takes f1. This wasn't played. Get as much material as possible and try and play on here. It's slightly off-putting that black has two connected passed pawns though, but apparently it's not such a huge advantage for black, this sort of continuation. But Magnus, unfortunately, well, I don't know if he's annoyed or something, he played queen d2 here. He didn't take that rook off. He played queen d2, which is a bad mistake, because black now has what? Can you see? What does black have in this position? Black's play. Yeah. Mating 2. It's mating 2, guys. It's mating 2. Wake up. Mating 2. Check. White has to resign. He's getting mated next move. Yeah. Either takes here or take the rook on g3, or yeah. This one isn't mate. The only one that isn't mate is this one. Not immediately a mating 2, because it's still a mate here. Check. Mate. But the immediate mating 2 is obviously just, you don't mess around, you just take here. Yeah. So yeah, he had to actually take on f1 to carry on playing this game. But as I say, black was doing well anyway. He didn't need to emphatically play this resource bishop takes g3. Technically, black was in great shape with, say, queen d4, and say here check. Didn't even need to sack a bishop. This is really dangerous. Yeah. Bishop takes g3 now. This could be much more destructive without any real defense. For example, queen d4 could be the start of something really destructive. But yeah, it's Blitz, you know, people play what they think is good enough. It's still good for black, even if white takes with the queen from a practical sense. So one more game. Yeah, that was an interesting Trompovsky. It seems black's king on the queen side was fairly safe. Interesting, Ivanchuk took the a2 pawn, which in some ways took the steam out of white's potential attack. Without the a pawn, maybe it's difficult to smash through to the black king. But there's one more game, just one more game, just for a sense of completeness, for looking at all the decisive games briefly. So Rajabov against Magnus Carlsen. The problem with this, I didn't actually prepare this at all. I didn't even play through this at all. I'll just quickly play through it with you. I don't know if that's a good idea. Let's see what happens. Knight f3 from Rajabov playing white. Let's flip the board. d5, d4. We have this a6. I'm just going to go briefly through this because I think my brain's fried now. Okay, b3, c5. Magnus took on d4. Play knight c6. It looks fairly solid at the moment. g6. That looks a bit dicey to me because there's more dark square weaknesses than usual. Both sides castle. b6. Okay. Takes on c4. It looks as though white's in a very comfortable position here at the moment. Queen c7. Okay, knight e7. We have knight e5. Now, after this, bishop takes f5. Okay, apparently black was doing really well now for some reason. Black's doing really well. I think white somehow misplayed it in the last few moves. Bishop takes f3. Queen takes f3. Knight e4. Okay, we have rook e2. Queen e6. Queen b3. Bishop takes, d takes. Queen c6. Queen e3. And yeah, black seems to be quite quick on the center file, contesting the center files. f3, knight c5. Threatening things like rook d3 now. Very comfortable looking position. e6 was played, which opens up that bishop. Threat, queen e5 to get onto the mating squares. Or queen c3, okay? So that's the idea of e6. Magnus played what seems to be a good response, knight d3. So stopping queen e5, stopping also queen c3, and hitting the bishop. Is that the end of white's attack? Rook d1. And now apparently in this position f4 would be a cool move to play. f4 would be cool as a cucumber move to play, with the idea of this check and then rook takes e6. But this didn't happen. Magnus played knight f4. Oh, blimey. And here white has actually what seems to be a very, very good move which is in play. This would have been big advantage to white. If takes, the point is, you know, there's certain back row weaknesses potentially if the rook takes. This is like a mate in 3, yeah. And that's a problematic position. This position here is problematic. If queen c5, this is not so great for black. Okay, anyway, white played rook e1, not so accurate. Rook takes d1, rook takes. Now we have knight takes e6. I do remember something of this. I think I remember reading a report about this game anyway. Yeah, knight takes e6 isn't the best idea in this position because we have this gigantic bishop on the diagonal. Yeah, somehow Magnus has cracked up here completely, breaks down like I am in this broadcast. He completely breaks down playing knight takes e6. Best move here to try and not get mated on the diagonal would be queen c5. And if bishop d4, we can just put the queen here, pinning. But no, he played actually a howler. It seems knight e6, knight takes e6, and now white gets what he wants: a dream battery along the diagonal, threatening mate in 1 on h8. Not here because the knight's protecting g7. You might think also, is there queen e5? Would queen e5 have done the job? Not really, because there's check. You see, the key point is there's a check to get rid of the queen. But with queen c3, there's no check to get rid of the queen. So we've got this gigantic battery threatening queen h8, mate in 1. And this is +5 now, nearly. Magnus plays f6 after queen takes f6. Now there's a horrible idea of check and queen takes h7 with carnage. That happens basically. Rook f8, check, takes on here, takes here. Now, okay, very good position. White actually plays a calm move, getting out of any checks with king h1 for the moment, before carrying on. So queen takes c4. We have bishop e5, stopping some exit routes of the black king, like d6 in particular. Well, if the rook wants to move or free to move. Also, of course, not just stopping exit routes, threatening bishop d6 check, in fact, to win the exchange. Rook f7. In fact, bishop d6 is played anyway. King e8. Unfortunately, this doesn't end well. Queen g8 check. Knight f8. Bishop takes f8. Ouch. The rook cannot take here because queen takes c4 actually wins the queen, funny enough. The queen's actually a tactical liability, among other things. So queen, this is a disaster. Yeah, queen e2 was played. And now bishop b4 check is actually a mate in 2. Yeah, this is like mating, next move. Yeah. So yeah, Magnus missed out his chance this year to become a 3 times World Blitz champion. Instead, Grischuk became a 3 times World Blitz champion. But maybe next year, yeah. Yeah, I hope you got something out of these games. Feel free to post any questions on YouTube in the next few days. So yeah, I know, crazy. I wanted to go through the games. I wasn't really intending to go through all the games. I was going to go through half of them maybe, but you know, I don't know. I thought, okay, it seems okay to go through all of them. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. See you next week. Yeah, thanks. Remember, likes are really appreciated. Yeah, if you want to like this long broadcast, yeah, that'd be cool. Okay, so otherwise, see you next week. Thanks very much. Comments or questions on YouTube, or any final comments if you want to make now, the next 20 seconds before I close this broadcast off. Okay, see you guys. Thanks. See you everyone next week. Thanks very much.